transparency. The format for our press conference this morning is as follows. The Premier will make his usual statement. Then you, the members of the press corps, will be given the opportunity to ask your questions. You're kindly asked to identify yourself and, of course, the media house which you represent. You're kindly asked to turn your phones off or turn them and put them on silent if necessary. Without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming to the podium the Honorable Premier of Nevis, Mark A.G. Brantley.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for attending another of these series of press conferences where we try to share some information with you and certainly to take your questions. As Mr. Daniel, the Permanent Secretary in the Premier's Ministry, who has been kind enough to be our master of ceremonies, if you will, for these press conferences in the past 2 years, as he has rightly pointed out, this is our effort, ongoing effort, to engage with the public, engage with the community that we serve, and an example we hope that will be seen as good governance and openness and transparency. I don't always have all the answers, but certainly I try to answer to the best of my ability the questions that come from the press. So I start then with some information. As usual, we start with some congratulations. And I'm told that young Rondre Daniel of the Maud Cross Preparatory School has won the local courts OECS reading competition, and that as a consequence, he will be traveling to St. Lucia next year to represent our federation in the regional tournament. So we extend congratulations to young Rondre and his family. We also extend congratulations to young Khalid Warner of the Elizabeth Pemberton Primary School, who I'm told placed third in the competition. Tamish Esdale, my dear friend and young Calypsonian, I want to wish her all the best. I'm told that she placed first run-up in Sugar Mass 48 female kaiso competition in St. Kitts. What's her singing name, a Calypsonian? Lady Destiny. And she's singing a song saying her father sent me. Her father sent her. I believe knowing her father, he sent her for the crown. But she got first run-up, and so we want to congratulate Lady Destiny, Tamish Esdale, for a job well done, and look forward to seeing much more from her on the Culturama stage and on the Carnival stage, on the Kaiso stage, locally and regionally. Let me also take the opportunity to congratulate the Empire Sports Club and their chairperson, still chairperson, Honorable Evelyn? President for life, I'm told. The Honorable Eric Evelyn is here. I didn't know those things happen in our part of the world, but he has really shepherded the Empire Sports Club for a very long time and really moved them from beyond just sports to other activities. It's really truly a social club, and they had, I'm told, a wonderful celebration of their 40th anniversary. And so kudos to them, kudos, Minister Evelyn, to you and your team, and to the entire membership of the Empire Sports Club for a job well done over these past 40 years. May you continue, sir, from strength to strength as you proceed. The President for Life, the Honorable Eric Evelyn. Let me also congratulate Dame Constance Mitchum. She is a recipient of the Queen's Award for her contribution to national development and law in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. She traveled, I'm told, to England to accept her award on the 21st of November. And so we congratulate her. She would, of course, have made history. I believe she was the first female minister of government, having been a minister in the then PAM NRP administration. And so we thank and congratulate her for her service and this well-deserved award. Let me also congratulate the new Premier of Montserrat, the Honorable Easton Taylor Farrell, on his recent victory at the polls. He went to the polls and triumphed there, he and his team, and I would want to extend congratulations to him and wish him all the very best in his new role as Premier of our sister island of Montserrat. As indicated in the last press conference, the Ministry of Communications had its Contractors Award at NEPAC on the 2nd of November this year. And I can tell you it was a fantastic affair. I want to really take a moment to congratulate Minister Brand and his team, his permanent secretary and the entire team there at the Ministry of Communications. Why? Because it was something that nobody had done before. Perhaps others might have thought of it. I don't know. But even if they thought of it, they did not bring it to fruition. And he and his team did. And I was happy that I was in attendance, because looking at the faces, I could see that a lot of these contractors felt good to be recognized. And some 55 persons were awarded in 3 categories: lifetime achievement, excellence in construction, plumbing and electrical installation, and we had some posthumous awards for those who had passed but had nevertheless made their mark. And so congratulations to all of the awardees and the recipients. I myself was surprised that we had so many contractors, because 55 were awarded, and I could tell you there are a lot more who have not yet been awarded, but I believe Minister Brand and his team will make every effort to ensure that all are recognized for their contribution. Our contractors have toiled, they have built, literally, the island, and we thought it prudent to support. And so when Minister Brand came with his brilliant idea, the Cabinet gave its full support, and we're delighted that the contractors have finally been recognized in Nevis for their excellent contribution to the physical construction and development of the island, and for all the employment they would have generated and the economic activity they would have generated over these long years. SIDU, the Small Enterprise Development Unit. You all, I believe, would know by now that I'm a great fan of small business and small business development. And I can tell you that I have been very impressed with the people at SIDU and what they're trying to do. I certainly want to commend Minister Doe, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, and the entire team, because they have really kept SIDU in the forefront. And SIDU organized a recent symposium where they had well over 100 businesses and business owners, small businesses, come together at NEPAC, those who had businesses and those who were interested in business. And that symposium exposed the attendees to a wide range of professionals who were there with panel discussions and the like. And I was very happy to have been there at the opening. I think it's an excellent initiative. Indeed, just this morning, as I drove into town, I saw my good friend Carl Claxton at Reliable Motors getting ready to open after a significant investment that he would have made as a local investor. That is what we want to see. Our local people stepping up to the plate. I know that we get caught up sometimes, members of the press, members of the public, and everybody's talking about foreign investment. And foreign investment is important. We all would like, and I would like to come from time to time and announce the next massive investment. But truth be told, that our small business sector is equally important. And if every business or startup were to employ 1 or 2 people, it tells you what we can do in terms of the employment situation on the island. So when I see youngsters like Carl Claxton making that level of investment, it tells me a number of things. It tells me that the business community is growing. It also tells me that they have confidence in the local economy and the stewardship and the policies of this government, because nobody is going to invest in a climate of uncertainty. Nobody is going to invest in a climate where they have no confidence or low confidence in the economic prospects, because people invest to get a return. And so as I passed here this morning, I was very proud. My heart was glad. Mr. Claxton, if you're listening, congratulations, sir. And this is part and parcel of what we're seeking to do with SIDU, is to beef up SIDU's capabilities so that SIDU can actually shepherd small business people. Many of our young people especially have ideas, brilliant ideas sometimes, but they don't know how to articulate it. They can't package it in terms of a proposal, even to be considered for funding. And oftentimes, even if they package it, the banks tell them, we don't want to take a risk on you. You have to come with some land maybe as collateral. You have to pay down some portion, 25% sometimes. We're going to charge you, because of a commercial arrangement, a higher rate of interest. Maybe you require some life insurance. All of these things the banks would require. And we understand the banks want to protect their investment in you in terms of lending to you. They want to be sure that their loan will be repaid. But what this does, it stifles a lot of potential business and business activity, because young people especially are among a demographic that are underserved. And so at that SIDU symposium, I was pleased to launch the long-awaited Nevis Entrepreneurial Fund. And that entrepreneurial fund, facilitated as it was through the government of Taiwan, and I extend my heartiest congratulations, thank you and congratulations to them for partnering with us. That fund, 5 million EC dollars, will seek to unlend up to 100,000, maximum, to individuals who wish to borrow for purposes of investing in small business. Startups and those who have existing businesses who may want some assistance to expand. We are, and I want to make it very clear, looking for serious people who are serious about an idea that they have. This fund is a fund with a difference because it is open only to women and men under 35. Maybe I'm saying that wrongly. It is open only to men under 35 and all women. The idea was that we wanted to serve two demographics, women and youth, who we thought were being underserved. And I recall when I raised the idea directly with the president of Taiwan, President Tsai, who of course is a woman. She was very, very happy at the notion that we were doing something which was geared to those two demographics to seek to assist them in getting businesses started. And we know a lot of women have wonderful ideas. They can cook, they can do hair, they can do various things of that nature. But again, where are they going to get the seed money to help, to get them started? And so that was the idea. Now I know some men have come at me, some have sent me messages. They've said it is unfair, that you're discriminating against them. And what I will say to them is that there are other programs. CEDU, for example, has a program which I believe lends up to $25,000, which is open to everybody. This $5 million, a small amount of money, was really earmarked to these two groups to seek to empower them and to encourage them to get into business. I want an environment in Nevis where more of our young people are business owners. More of them are entrepreneurs. I think all of us understand that the only way to generate real wealth is through business activity. Coming into government and getting a job in government might be a good thing. But at the end of the day, to generate wealth, to generate employment, to create the kind of momentum that we want in the economy, we need businesses. And that is why this government is so serious about partnering with the business community. This $5 million, I have said to the technocrats, can cost no more than 4% interest. If I can get it at 3, I would feel even better, but certainly no more than 4. We know that commercial rates are still sometimes as high as 7 and 8%. And so for someone to get a business loan at 3 to 4%, I think is excellent. So I've said no more than 4%, and I see what they come back to me with. And we were able to announce that from January, we will start accepting applications. Now, the Ministry of Gender Affairs, through Madam Minister Hazel Brantley-Williams, has actually been able to organize some initiatives, something that they're referring to as a boot camp. And they will have a number of people with training to guide them through a process. CEDU will manage these funds. And so it will be to CEDU that the applications will go. But we are interested in this boot camp because this will allow some of our people who maybe have an idea, but again do not have the understanding or the skill set to put that idea into a form that it becomes marketable, that is going to take place at this boot camp. And so CEDU will have some responsibility going forward for some ongoing training. I know CEDU has already done training in things like QuickBooks, accounting, getting our public and our business, small business community accustomed to the idea that they have to keep proper records, for example. It may sound simple, but a lot of people don't keep records. And so when the taxman comes and he knocks on the door, they don't have the records to show what exactly their business has been doing. And oftentimes they get an assessment, and sometimes they complain that the taxman is too harsh. The best way to deal with that is to keep accurate records. And so we have certainly been dealing with that, and I'm very proud. In fact, this entrepreneurship fund is really one of a kind. And I am going to predict today that others will follow suit because, you know, in Nevis we like to set the trend. I suspect that others will have specially geared funds as well for women and youth, as we have tried to do. You see, ladies and gentlemen, we're not just talking the talk, we are walking the walk. We're not just saying that we are trying to advance women or we're trying to advance youth. We are putting money behind it, and we are creating policies to seek to achieve that which we say is important to us. As I continue with some congratulations, I want to congratulate Ms. Verna Grant. I'm told that she was a Youth Impact 12 awardee for the month of October, and she was awarded in the area of youth in education and lifelong learning. A call for nominations has been announced for December, and that is for youth in volunteerism, and for January of next year, God willing, youth in entrepreneurship. The deadline for both categories is Friday, November 29th. And so if you know youth out there who are doing well in terms of volunteerism and youth who are doing well in terms of entrepreneurship, please make the nominations so that they can be congratulated. Let me also take some time to congratulate the 25 most remarkable teens. It is an event which is now into its 9th year. And what happens is that the Parliament convenes in a special sitting to acknowledge these youngsters in the halls and within the halls, of the Parliament, which for us is very significant. Let me take some time to specially mention the 6 divisions who are part of the 25: Chanelli Hines, Zwina Jones, Delia Slack, Jerriella Liburd, Alicia Kelly, and Shante Anslin. And all of these young people are marked for greatness. I congratulate them all. Preparations for our national Christmas tree lighting in Charlestown, I'm told, are in high gear, and that will occur on the 4th of December, and all are welcome and all are invited. Members of the general public should come and witness what promises to be a spectacle in Charlestown. The Department of Community Development has received confirmation thus far of 21 Christmas tree lightings across the island. So that means for members of the cabinet, you all would have to spread out. Because 21 Christmas tree lightings, and the permanent secretaries, you may also be asked to fill in. It's going to be a lot over the season, but 21 thus far. So we'll see how that goes. Culture, the update that we have. Minister Evelyn is here, and we all can, I think, those who support and those opposed, come to the certain conclusion and agreement that he's really been doing a phenomenal job in culture. Not only here locally, but even Trinidad and mash up Trinidad as well. So he has really been doing a good job in culture. And he has shepherded a particular project, that project being the development at Cronies in Gingerland. For those who want to know where Cronies is, we say market shop loosely, the hub for Gingerland. And Gingerland people have said that this is a significant project for them. I have been able to go there myself at the construction stage and really been able to see the joy and hear the joy from people who see a renaissance, if you will, happening in Gingerland. And someone said to me recently that they're having this massive investment there. They're having a new gas station. They have the supermarket that is there. They have the high school that is there. And I have discussed with Minister Evelyn and asked him to consider redevelopment of the market. And we feel that if all of that can come together, you create a hub of activity right there. And you see, I come back to business again. A hub of activity. What are we doing up there? It's a multi-purpose facility that is being developed at Cronies. And the good news is that it is slated for a grand opening tomorrow, Thursday the 28th, commencing at 6 p.m. And that grand opening is twinned with the opening of Gingerama 2019, which runs from Thursday, November 28th to Sunday, December 1st. The opening will showcase the cream of the crop of Gingerland talent. Music, folklore, calypso, soca, you name it. And 2 pageants are going to happen. Miss Gingerama and Miss Gingerette. So they're going to be having a good time up there. Cordial invitation is extended to residents of Gingerland and the rest of Nevis to come and witness this historic event. And the event is free of charge. The rest of the Gingerama program, Friday, November 29th, we have Ginger Fete, featuring the Grandmasters, Collision, and core bands, and a number of DJs. Saturday, November 30th, they have Juve, featuring the core band and the Miss Gingerama pageant on Sunday, December 1st. They have cricket at Hard Times playing field and the TDC Miss Gingerette pageant. Now, let me take a moment, ladies and gentlemen, because this is significant, to talk a bit about this particular project. Over the past 11 months, the Ministry of Social Development and Culture undertook a major capital project at Cronies, or Market Shop as we say. That is literally in the heart of Gingerland. This project saw the construction of a multi-purpose facility, which would, one, become the home of the annual Gingerama Community Festival. Two, be available to all individuals wishing to host various community social events, graduations, wedding receptions, concerts, meetings, workshops, churches who want to use it, etc. Three, become a center of special training in the creative and cultural arts industry where performances such as our masquerade, cakewalk, etc. could be taught. Training would also be done in playing the steel pan, blowing of the fife, playing the kettle drum, and also musical instruments that make up the string band. The Ministry of Social Development and Culture would also like to introduce a program at the facility to teach the playing of wind instruments such as the trumpet, trombone, and saxophone. With the introduction of this program, it would eliminate the need to import horn players during the Culturama season. Many of us don't realize, but the bands that support the Calypsonians during Culturama, a lot of times we have to import horn players. Some come from as far as St. Martin, I'm told, and the Virgin Islands sometimes to help to support. Why? Because we have not had a development of wind instruments over the years, and so this is very useful. We are going to use it to conduct classes in the culinary arts. It's also going to serve as a community center for the surrounding areas. We also, which I think is interesting, is going to become the home of a wall of legendary personalities, akin to a Hall of Fame, where outstanding Gingerlanders would be recognized for their contribution to the development of Gingerland. This wall of legendary personalities will also depict the centenarians from the Gingerland area. And we know there are a lot from Gingerland. Most of the centenarians, in fact, hail from the Gingerland area. The project commenced in 2018, December. It was done in 2 stages. The first stage was done between December 2018 and July 2019. So about a 6-7 month period. And we did their performance stage along with a fully air-conditioned backstage area. The backstage area is equipped with 4 dress rooms, 2 full bathrooms with showers, 2 powder rooms. And the backstage building also has a common or waiting area. There's also a utility room from which the stage lighting will be controlled, and an IT center, which will be the hub for the CCTV program, which we hope to roll out very shortly. Additionally, the IT center would also be the base for the computer network at the Gingerland Secondary School. I think this is important because it shows that we didn't just put up a building. We put up a building with considerable thought to ensure that other things were incorporated there. The second stage of the construction began in September 2019 and was completed in November. During the second stage, 8 concession stalls, an electrical room, a ticket booth, and 2 entrance gates were constructed. A car park was also created to the east of the facility. The car park would eliminate the need for patrons to park along the roadside during events at the facility, and also, of course, during burials at the nearby cemetery. The performance stage was also covered during the second stage of the construction. The area immediately in front of the stage along the areas surrounding the concession stands and the walkway from the entrance gates to the seating area were also paved. Minister Evelyn spent a lot of money up in Gingerland. But I believe that all of you will be proud of what is there. And so we're inviting everyone to come out tomorrow at 6 o'clock to see for yourselves. And I was very happy to see him on the local news indicating that he had a need for lighting in the area. And he called Nevlik and he said by the same evening, Nevlik had responded and had put up the lights in the area. So we have all the necessary ingredients for a wonderful time to be had. The grand opening tomorrow, 6 o'clock, and they're not only going to open it, they're going to have a grand naming ceremony as well, because we are moving to a stage where we feel that these facilities and important monuments and edifices should have a name attached to them from some worthy person in the community. I can't tell you who it is. Minister Evelyn will do that tomorrow, no doubt, when he does his speech and declares the whole facility open. A proud moment for him, a proud moment for Gingerland. Minister Evelyn, kudos, congratulations to you. We look forward certainly to a wonderful time tomorrow. As I talk about business, I'm going back again to my business spiel. As I'm coming here, I got a note handed to me. The note said, Seabourn Odyssey has just docked in Charlestown. 457 passengers, 358 crew. That is, by my tally, over 800 people that are currently visiting Charlestown. I say that because we have said here from this podium and other areas where we have had the chance to speak, that the cruise season as part, a small part, but nevertheless part of our tourism sector here on the island of Nevis is looking particularly robust this year. We are expecting, I'm told, some 62 calls, which compares favorably, just barely, to the 60 calls we had last year. So we're only getting 2 additional calls. And you may well ask, well, what's significant about that? Well, the significance is that the calls that we're getting this year are by much larger ships. And so as a result, the ships are bringing many more passengers than last year. So last year we had 60 calls, which only brought just over 6,000 passengers. This year we're having 62, and they're bringing over 14,000 passengers. Now that pales in comparison to the 1+ million that St. Kitts gets. But we understand that Nevis is not a cruise destination in that sense. We have not built out the infrastructure for the large cruise ships here. And we depend on Nevis very heavily on the heads and beds. The stay-over model is Nevis's model. And so as a result, we feel very pleased that we're seeing over 100% increase in the passengers. And 14,000 plus, those are the passengers. When you add the crew to that, you're probably up at about 25,000. Because you see what I just said? Seabourn Odyssey, 457 passengers, 358 crew. Sometimes we don't count the crew, but the crew also comes ashore and also shops and also goes around. And so we put them in the number. And I say to those on the front lines, or taxi drivers in particular, that they ought to get ready and put themselves in a position. I'm particularly pleased that my permanent secretary, Minister of Tourism, Mr. Handley, he's not here. I'm not pleased that he's not here. I'm particularly pleased for why he's not here. And he's not here because he and the team are doing other things associated in part with this visit. And they've transformed the artisan village, one of the major investments this government has made. And I'm told there today, and when you've done here, members of the press, you can perhaps go there. They're there already. They're going to have fresh cane juice available. They're going to have sugar cake making and samples available to our visitors. And they're going to have something else, they told me. Sugar cake, fresh cane juice, and I can't remember what else. But they're going to be having a good time down there. And so we invite you all to go there and be a part of it. And they're going to have music, of course, to simply our effort to make the island more welcoming and to have more to do there. Now, that, again, in the context of business, takes me to SIDU, Small Enterprise Development Unit. Again, takes me back to SIDU. SIDU is hosting a boardwalk fair. I believe the date is the 12th of December. And that boardwalk fair, which is their brainchild, they've come up with it, they're going to transform the Hunkins Drive, set up a number of booths along the Hunkins Drive, and invite stakeholders who, if interested, should go and register. They can register, I'm told, with SIDU on Facebook, or they can go to the offices at the Credit Union building. The idea really is to bring these stakeholders together on a day when we're having a cruise ship, which I believe is the largest one that we're getting. That one has over 1,200 passengers. And so that one will be in port on the 12th of December. And SIDU has decided to partner with tourism and to create, if you will, a cornucopia of activity there. We hope to have those who are selling anything to do with fashion. We're going to have the masquerades, the music. We're going to have like a mini Culturama down there. And the idea really is an excellent one. I thank those at SIDU who continue, as I say, to make us proud. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we are looking forward to a robust season. We hope the weather holds, and we hope that the ships that are to call, and that the people have a good experience, bearing in mind that in Nevis, we use cruise as an introduction to the island. So cruise for us is not a means, is not an end in itself, but a means to an end. The idea is that if you come on Seabourn Odyssey today, you should be so impressed that you want to come back with your family to stay at one of our hotels. Having said that, let me segue very quickly to the Four Seasons Resort. I want to publicly congratulate the ownership, the management, and staff there. We all know that in December 2018, I stood in the Parliament during the budget debates here in Nevis, and I declared to the world that the Four Seasons had advised that they will be closed for 4 months, June, July, August, and September of 2019. It was a difficult 4 months, to be sure. But we spoke about it early, we spoke about it often, and we tried to prepare the workers. And I think that it will be for the members of the press and the community to judge, ultimately, this government. But I'm here today on the 27th day of November 2019. The hotel has reopened, major construction is over, and yesterday I spoke to the management there, and the occupancy is very high for the Thanksgiving season. And they expect that occupancy is going to move from where it is now to 100% during what they call the festive season. That is when December, mid-December to perhaps the end of December, early January, mid-December to mid-January, let us say. They expect that to move to 100%. The rates in particular are very impressive, let me say that. I would not be able to afford, but for those who can afford, the rates have gone up dramatically from where they were. Now you would ask, why am I interested in rates? Well, the rates are relevant to the government because the higher the rate, the more taxes we can collect. And the higher the rate, the more service charge the workers can collect. And so everybody wins in that type of environment. And so Four Seasons is back, new and improved. And you know what I admire most? I was able to put up some photos sent to me of the new pool. And the new pool is being talked about. It's a fantastic new initiative that they've done there. But the pool is nice and very nice. It is spectacular, in fact. But what for me is even more spectacular, it was built by Nivision. And I believe that sometimes we don't give each other enough. Say it again. It was built by Nivision. In fact, the majority of work done at Four Seasons in this last phase was done by artisans, workers right here in Nevis. The landscaping, the irrigation, the masonry, the stonework was done by us. And I want you to go there and see for yourself, because this is what the people of Nevis are capable of producing. In fact, I think Minister Evelyn will be proud that the man who built the pool is from Rollins, his constituency. He will be very proud. So, ladies and gentlemen, it just tells you that we are moving, and we're moving in the right direction. We got a lot of criticism, about the closure of the Four Seasons. We understand that we're in a democracy, that there'll be different views. And I always say views are welcome. But there were those out there who were saying to the workers, you all should sever your relationship with Four Seasons and get your severance pay. Because you'll get a lump sum of $20,000 or $30,000 as the case may be. And some workers, I think, actually accepted that would have been a better way for them. My question to those workers is, once you have severed, hear the word, severed. What happens when the hotel reopens in September, as they said they would? What happens to your job? And some members of the talk culture that we have were telling people you could sever, collect your severance pay, and when the hotel reopens, you just waltz right back in. And we all know that that is not how the law works, and that is not accurate. And anybody who chose to sever their relationship with the hotel during the 4 months would have to reapply with no guarantee that they would be rehired. And so it was an example of people telling our people that you should look for short-term gain, even though that may lead to some long-term pain for you. Truth is that through our discussions with the government with Four Seasons, they agreed to pay affected workers, and there were just over 300 of them, 25% of their normal wage. These workers therefore got that 25%, even if they got a part-time job in the meantime, someplace else, they still got the 25%. We then as a government waived any taxes on that 25%, and we negotiated with Social Security on the workers' behalf that Social Security also waived any payments on that 25%, so they will get the full amount in their hands. The homeowners at Four Seasons came through, and they offered a package of $150,000 shared evenly among the affected workers. We did not stop there. I personally wrote to every bank and financial institution in Nevis in my capacity as Premier and Minister of Finance, and I asked the banks, please, could you give some relief to those that were affected? I am very pleased to say that most of the banks responded favorably. Some said they would have to make no payments at all during the 4-month period, and others said that they will pay interest only. So some relief was provided to them. But we didn't stop there. Recognizing that they had back-to-school expenses, this government took a decision in an environment where resources were very scarce to give to each of the affected workers 1,000 EC dollars as a back-to-school assistance, if you will, and we did that in late August. The workers then went back to work in September, and most now are fully employed again. Now it again is for members of the press and the public to judge. But what I will say on this, the 27th day of November 2019, that the doom and gloom and the collapse that some predicted has not happened. And I thank certainly my colleagues. We have been steady, we have been steadfast in dealing with what could have been a catastrophe for the island had we not done the things we did and prepared our people accordingly. Today, the people who are being told to sever their employment are back at work in their jobs and hopefully looking forward, according to Four Seasons, to the best season in the hotel's history. And so, to God be the glory. Sometimes we hear the noise, we ignore it, and we keep working. This government was dealt another body blow when Brownhill Communications, Friday afternoon before the last Culturama weekend, it was such a body blow I couldn't even go to Juve as I had planned. They said that they were closing down. We didn't have any notice, we didn't have the courtesy of any negotiations. They simply announced that that was it and the decision had been taken. Again, we were proactive. We recognized that some 131 workers would be affected, and I would want to recognize the stellar leadership of Minister Brand and his team, Gary Libert and the whole team there at Labour, because we got involved very early. We met, we had a town hall meeting just for the workers. The good people on St. Kitts at the Ministry of Labour over there as well, they came and participated. And working together, we were able to secure, I think, some excellent packages for the workers. Many of the workers, based on their length of service, were able to walk away with 5 and 6 months' salary in their hands from the company. We also, of course, got a commitment from St. Kitts, because severance payments are handled in St. Kitts, that the workers will be paid. In fact, I saw a press release saying that the workers will be paid in October, by the end of October 2019. The truth is that that deadline slipped. But we are now told, and I'm pleased to advise, that some 47 workers were already paid in the first batch. The second batch, constituting 51 workers, I'm told that your checks are ready, and that you therefore should be able to collect your checks today, tomorrow, certainly in the next few days. And then that would leave only 24 that have not yet been dealt with, because I'm told a very small group are still working. And so their claims will not yet be dealt with. And so that final 24, we hope that they too would get their money quickly, certainly in time for VAT Day, so that they could go out and do their shopping. But, ladies and gentlemen, when we put together the severance package and the compensation package from the company, some workers would have gone home with up to 11 or 12 months' salary. And so while it doesn't ease the pain of losing a job, it certainly does give them a bit of a cushion while they try to find alternative employment. In addition, we recognize there were some non-national workers there. And we have committed that those who require work permits, we will sort them out. Those who need their stays dealt with, we will sort them out. We will make sure that the people there are not made any worse off. They are already affected, and we are trying our best. We have not stayed there, but my government has now had a series of meetings and 2 site visits from others who are interested in taking over that facility. Because as you will recall, as part of our negotiations, Brantley Communications agreed to leave all of the infrastructure in place. So all of the units, the cubicles, all of the computer equipment, all of the technology is still there. And the idea was it would allow us to more quickly get someone in. We've had 2 groups come to visit so far, and we hope very soon to be in a position to announce something. So we have continued to work in that regard. And to those affected workers, many of whom have been texting and calling me, I just want them to know that the payments on severance were delayed, but the payments are coming. And as I said, 47 were paid in the first batch, 51, I'm told the checks are ready for you, and the balance, some 24, we hope to have your payments to you shortly. Let me segue very quickly, ladies and gentlemen, to the Ministry of Tourism. I have told you about the Seabourn Odyssey being in port today. The Bath Hotel, we are asking for the patience of the public. We're doing some power washing there. We know that's a very popular historic site that people visit, and so we apologize for any inconvenience. The gazebo pool at the Bath Springs, that is the pool that is under the shed. We're doing some work there as well. It will be closed temporarily for repairs. No more than 2 or 3 days, but we are replacing some concrete slabs, and we're retiling and resurfacing, because we've had some complaints that some of the tiles are chipped and can cause injury to individuals. And so we're seeking the patience of the public as we deal with these matters. The promotional activities I've mentioned at the Artisan Village, it's starting today, and we're dubbing it Artisan Village Pinny's Beach Infusion. The activities are intended to drive visitor traffic and increase business to the vendors, and the first activity is happening right now. You remember I said I couldn't remember the third thing? So they're doing fresh cane juice. They're extracting the juice from the cane right there so people can sample. They're making sugar cakes. And the third thing they're doing is parching nuts. If you all don't know what that is how the nuts become, well, peanuts that you eat. We parch them. You know, Eric, you remember Cooley? Mama Cooley used to parch nuts. So we parch the nuts. So all of this is sort of traditional stuff, and that is the third thing that they're doing. And of course, they will have sampling and cooking demonstration and live entertainment. The Pinnis Bark project, just to give a quick update to members of the press, that the Pinnis Bark project has in fact started. We are doing some work off-site, propagating plants to be used in the landscaping. We're finalizing the EIA, the Environmental Impact Assessment, the civil engineering works, and the detailed architectural plans, and we hope to see some activity on-site very shortly. I should also say that the long-awaited pier construction or renovation in Charlestown, that I announced had started, and I recognize that there was, as usual, some chatter, but the truth is that sometimes people who are talking don't take the time to try and understand what is happening. The work had started at the pier. It is just that, as we know, with pier construction, some of the work is done off-site. So they prepare off-site, and then when they come on-site, they drop in the pilings and they do what they need to do. And so when I said the work had started, it's because the work had started. We had signed the contract, we had paid the money. And we are told that as quickly as perhaps next week, we should now see the work on the site here, because some of the preparatory work that was being done off-site is now completed. As part of the park, Pinnis Park project, very interesting aspect of it, because this is supposed to be a park that seeks to capture the friendship that we've enjoyed with the government and people of Taiwan. They're the ones providing the funding for this park. And so we've come up with the idea that we'll have a group of local children, conditions and divisions, and a group of Taiwanese children produce artwork. And that artwork, when combined, will provide a mosaic of a sorts that will be a lasting testimony to the friendship between our two peoples. And so on December the 4th, 108 school children from St. Kitts and Nevis will converge at occasions to participate in a national art imagery workshop. The children will be drawing iconic national images and landscapes of Taiwan under the guidance of local artist Vaughn Anslin. Now that is interesting because the children here will be asked to draw something about Taiwan. And the children in Taiwan will be asked to draw something about St. Kitts Nevis. So we are really trying to see how we can use this to create something unique. And so Vaughn Anslin, one of our local iconic artists, he will shepherd this for us. He will be guiding these 108 school children. Now the children will also write their good wishes and sign their artwork. The drawings will later be digitized and printed onto ceramic tiles to form a collage which will feature prominently in the visitor center to be built at Pinnes Park. Early next year, similar activity will take place in Taiwan, where their school children will draw iconic national images and landscapes of St. Kitts and Nevis. The artwork of the children from both nations will be featured in the visitor center as a testament to the 36-year friendship that exists between our two countries. And that, ladies and gentlemen, I think is an excellent initiative. Let me just very quickly now turn to the Ministry of Health. International Men's Day, the Ministry of Gender and Health. International Men's Day was celebrated on the 19th of November. I would want to, of course, congratulate Minister Brantley Williams and the team there. They have come up with a theme, men leading by example. And that encourages our men to be positive role models, especially our young boys. Gender Affairs Department within the Ministry of Health and Gender Affairs also used the opportunity to honor 13 specially selected men. I realize that none of them came from the cabinet, so I'm a little, maybe next year. But 13 men were recognized from varying backgrounds and professions. And so we congratulate the 13 awardees. The department is also currently hosting a men's forum today at the Anglican Church Hall, where various issues affecting men and boys were discussed. In fact, our Madam Minister just arrived. She was at that forum, and I believe that forum is still ongoing, where these important issues impacting men and boys are being discussed. In health, Community Health Nursing Services held their annual Diabetic Symposium, which forms part of the Awareness for World Diabetes Day, under the theme, The Family and Diabetes. The symposium provided an opportunity, of course, to raise awareness of the impact that diabetes has on the family and the support network of those affected. The day's activity ended with a quiz among the health center diabetic groups, with Charlestown emerging as the winner. The Community Health Nursing Services also received a generous donation of 4 EKG, electrocardiogram machines, from the Nevis Cooperative Credit Union branch here on Nevis. We thank them very much for their generosity. These machines will be placed in the health centers, thus making services more readily available to persons within the various communities. Health providers within the Ministry of Health and Gender took part in a 3-day chronic disease forum, 13th to 15th November, hosted by the Taiwan International Cooperation Development Fund, ICDF. The forum highlighted the medical and economic burden caused by chronic non-communicable diseases, NCDs, and the current challenges we face in the prevention and control systems targeting these diseases. Dr. Wei Cheng Seng, visiting specialist from the nephrology department of Taipei Veterans General Hospital, along with other healthcare providers, both local and regional, presented on various topics. Let me again go on record to thank the government of Taiwan for their ongoing assistance, particularly in the area of health. I'm also to announce and to advise that the Honorable Junior Minister, Honorable Hazel Brandy Williams, was invited to participate in the Nairobi Summit on the International Conference on Population and Development, co-convened by the United Nations Population Fund, with the government of the Republic of Kenya and the Kingdom of Denmark. The summit brought together member states of the UN, parliamentarians, local governments, international and financial institutions, non-governmental organizations, community-led organizations, academia, and the private sector. The summit intended and I quote, to galvanize change and mobilize leadership in addressing persistent and emergent challenges related to the ICPD program of action. It also helped to mobilize political and international momentum to advance the ICPD agenda as indispensable in achieving the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Lastly, the Health Promotion Unit hosted a Youth and Leaders Forum on HIV on 25th and 26th November, respectively. The forum provided an opportunity for participants to speak candidly about the issues surrounding the disease. The presenters shared the profile of HIV in St. Kitts and Nevis, as well as the national response in terms of prevention. Participants of the Leaders Forum included the Honorable Mark Brantley, prominent secretaries and representatives from other business and statutory organizations. I just want to take a moment to commend the hard work of the people at the Health Promotion Unit. I did attend, as I said in the note that has been passed to me, this particular Leaders Forum. And the idea was to bring people in leadership positions to a forum discussing HIV and AIDS, with the hope that people will then go from there to their respective businesses, respective areas of work, and influence others. Well, as the Premier of Nevis, I thought I have a bully pulpit, and I will use it to seek to say to our people that we ought not to relent in our fight against HIV and AIDS. That yes, treatment has improved, yes, people are now living longer, but there is still no cure. And if the disease is not caught early, we still end up with a death sentence. And so we continue to encourage people to get tested and to know their status. I did something out of the ordinary, perhaps. I got tested on camera. Someone said to me, you probably knew what the result was going to be before. And I said, yes. It is a good result that I got. But I got tested, and I believe one prominent secretary who was there with me, he got tested as well on camera. Only difference is I noticed that NTV only showed his hand, but they showed the whole of me. But we got tested, and it wasn't just a PR gimmick. We got tested because we wanted to show that this is important. And I was personally so amazed. Why? Because we now offer rapid testing in Nevis. And so it's no longer a situation where they're drawing blood from you and you're waiting for a couple of days to find out. You get your results within a matter of minutes with a simple prick to your finger and a few drops of blood. And the fact that the technology has improved to a point where we can get the results almost immediately tells us that there's very little reason why we should not know our status. Now, why should you know your status? You should know your status to prevent you infecting other people inadvertently. You should know your status because it allows you to get treatment, and the earlier you can get treatment is the longer that you can live with this particular disease. But we are not to take our eyes off it, because I have seen that the numbers presented continue to be quite stubborn. Because nearly every year we continue to register in the teens new cases of HIV in the Federation. And so we have gone from a low of 9 in one year to a high of 17 in another. But over the last decade or so, we are still averaging about 10 or 12. In fact, for this year, I'm advised, we've already had 12 new cases of HIV in St. Kitts and Nevis. So it's not going away. And we have to do more. We have had some success, to be sure. In fact, St. Kitts and Nevis was the first country in the OECS to eliminate HIV transmission from mother to child. So we've had some success that we can be proud of. We have also never had any case of HIV transmission from blood transfusions in the Federation. And that is because our lab technicians do an excellent job in terms of the screening that is done. But heterosexual activity continues to be the main culprit of HIV transmission in the Federation. And multiple partners and having unprotected sex continues to be a major issue. And so I don't want this press conference today to turn into a forum on sex education. But I thought, in light of this very important forum that was put on by the Health Promotion Unit that I ought to lend my voice and use this platform to trumpet the fact that the work is still there to be done, the battle has not been won, and that each and every one of us has to take personal responsibility for what we do, how we do it, and to go out and find out our status. The good people at Health Promotion are saying that if you pop in, they can deal with it in a matter of minutes. And you leave with an added pep in your step knowing that you're HIV negative. And if by any chance you're HIV positive, then there is treatment and care which is free, that is available to you to ensure that you continue to live a healthy life and continue to be a contributing member of the society. I end now by indicating that two things. Tomorrow, we have a very historic sitting of the National Assembly, where for the very first time, we will seek to amend the Constitution of St. Kitts and Nevis. The very first time that there will be any attempt at amendment to that document, which of course became our highest law on the 19th of September 1983. And so the unity government is seeking to amend the Constitution, and that amendment, as part of the good governance agenda, part of the greater transparency, and part of the electoral reform agenda, is to limit any individual from serving more than 2 terms as Prime Minister. So that is, again, not just talk, but people walking the walk. And that goes to the Parliament tomorrow. We are hopeful that when it comes to the vote, that all members in the Parliament will support a very important initiative such as that. And I end lastly by saying that I would want to invite you, the members of the press and the general public, all who are gathered here, to the budget debates for Nevis, which start on the 3rd of December. We are doing ours the 3rd to the 6th, I believe, 3rd to the 5th, and the federal government then will go, the federal parliament, then will go the following week. So we're inviting you to come to the Nevis Island Assembly Chambers for the reading of the budget on the 3rd of December 2019, where we look at our plans and programs for next year. Ladies and gentlemen, those are my remarks for the purpose of this press conference. If there are questions, I will take them, and if there are none, I will thank you for being with me. Oh, I see a reporter already. So please go ahead and let me know what the questions are.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Bjorn Hanley, representing BHC Media, and you can find us on www.bhcmedia.online, and of course we are on Facebook as well. You could like our page at BHC Media.
You need to charge you for free advertisement, at press conference, Mr. Hanley.
Charge? Well, it's a trade-off, yeah.
Okay, it's a trade-off.
It's a trade-off.
I agree. That's a fair point. Yes.
I'm going to start on a matter of employment update on Four Seasons. Is everyone back at work now? 100%?
My advice is that those who are affected are back at work, yes.
Okay.
In fact, I am told that Four Seasons has actually been advertising, because as you know, for the festive season, they will take on additional people as well. So there may be some opportunities for others down there as well.
Okay. In regards to BHC, the severance package payout, I'm happy that we had some payout already, and we have 24 left. But, however, I am unsure how the system works now, because I was made redundant in June, and I am told since June that the matter is being dealt with in St. Kitts. So I am still waiting for my severance package that is due to me. And so if you could explain to me how that works, because June is way before September.
Well, Mr. Hanley, I wasn't aware of your personal situation, but what I can tell you is that severance payments normally do take several months.
Yes.
It is not unusual that they would take sometimes as long as 6 months.
Okay.
But because of the trauma, if you will, caused to such a large group of individuals when Brantley Communications suddenly announced its closure, the government got involved, and we actually made a representation to the federal authorities that this ought to be dealt with in an expedited way. There was also, of course, the fact that some of the workers at Brantley Communications were non-nationals, and we did not know if some of them might want to return to their countries, although we invite them to stay and continue to contribute here. We did not know if some wanted to return. So we took all of that into consideration and sought to get them as quickly as possible. The federal government did respond. I think there was a press release that they issued saying that they would be paid in October. As it turned out, that did not materialize. But as I've indicated, we now know that 47 were paid, 51 checks are now available, and the balance being 24, we hope will be paid soon. So if it is that your matter has not yet been dealt with, I'm more than prepared to make the necessary inquiry on your behalf to find out where your individual severance payment is in the system. But I don't think you ought to despair, because I said it normally takes a few months. This Brownhill Communications was unusual because we asked that it be expedited.
All right. The point is basically those who are not with BHC or Four Seasons, we would like to know what cushion is available, because I would not have received any cushion since June. And I'm sure there's others out there who would not have received any cushion. So we would like to know the process of that. And can you respond to that?
Well, process for cushion?
Yeah. Is it hand-picked or is it their process? Because I myself need some cushion.
Cushion normally you get some bits of cloth and put some put some wool or something inside of it, no?
Yeah.
I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. But
for the future,
let us appreciate that the system as it's currently constructed has, of course, social security benefits that can flow. We expect, of course, that if you have been severed or made redundant, that some package could be made available to you.
All right.
And that your severance payment should be made available to you. That normally is a cushion that the law provides for.
Okay.
In our case, I think because of the suddenness again and because of the scale of people impacted, we thought that we needed to intervene. We're talking about 131 workers who were impacted. So we thought it's significant enough that the government got involved, and that is what we did.
Okay. Another question. Several weeks ago, about a couple of weeks ago, you announced on live radio that there were some misappropriation of funds at CFBC between the years of 2013 to 2014. I have since learned that the matter is in court at this time. And according to you, you are going to prosecute this matter in the People's Court. What do you hope to accomplish by prosecuting this CFBC matter in the People's Court?
Well, I believe in openness and transparency. That's why I've instituted a monthly press conference. It never happened before. And that's why you can be here asking questions. And I believe that CFBC is a public institution. And if some irregularities have occurred there, the people have a right to know what those irregularities are, when they occurred, and so that we can all collectively pledge not to allow them to occur again. So I believe that that is a very important audit report that has come to me, and that is a matter that, as I said, will be prosecuted in the court of public opinion. People ought to know what happened at CFBC. They ought to hear about irregularities that have been highlighted in the audit report at CFBC, and that will happen. I'm aware that there's a matter in the court where there's some allegation of libel or defamation. Let me use a broader term, but I am not party to those claims, and frankly, I am not yet clear as to why those claims were brought or the justification for them. Let me put it in this way, Mr. Hanley. If it is that Mark Brantley, as I am, I'm the Premier of Nevis and Minister of Finance, and there ought or is a report from the Director of Audit saying that some $1 million, I'm just pulling a figure out of thin air, has gone missing from the Treasury Department, for example, I think that it would be a question that is properly asked of Mark Brantley as the Premier and Minister of Finance. Are you aware that money went missing from the Treasury? How did that money go missing from the Treasury? And what are you doing to correct that, to ensure that the people's money is not taken advantage of in the future? I think that those are eminently reasonable things to ask of somebody who's in charge. And so I think equally at CFBC, as in any other institution, I can assure you that if money goes missing up at Charleston Secondary, or at Planning Department, or at Post Office, that you and others, quite rightly, would come and say, Mr. Brantley, and I will ask of my ministers, well, are you aware that this money went missing or this irregularity occurred? That is the nature. We say we want openness and transparency. We can't just want it for some. We must want it for everyone. So CFBC is a very important institution, and that report, I think, is quite distressing in terms of what it reveals about what happened at CFBC and the fact that money took flight. We don't know where it flew to, but money took flight. Because the report describes, for example, how you had money that came in, but by the time you reached to the bank to do the deposit, some fell off the truck. So these are important things, Mr. Hanley. I think that you should be very interested, and all of Nevis and Sinkers should be very interested. So that's what I hope to achieve, public awareness on matters of public interest.
Okay. Because I see a trend here because why wasn't this matter dealt with in 2015, 16, 17 or 18? Years after, we are now dealing with this matter, and it was, you said, in 2013 and 2014, some misappropriation of funds. And the trend is, I remember last election, the trend I'm seeing, I remember last election, you prosecuted a matter similar in regards to land and house, in regards to house and land, land and housing. And we saw the prosecution of that matter in the People's Court.
Quite effective.
Is this the same thing?
Quite effective.
Is this the same thing over
well,
again?
I don't know if it's the same thing. I think that our people must have information available to them.
Okay.
And the question for me is not a question of timing or otherwise. It's a question of whether or not the information shared is factual. And so you say I prosecuted the land and housing matter. Everything I said was documented.
Okay.
Everything I said, you could go to the registry yourself as an investigative journalist and find the information.
Okay.
And it must be a matter that is troubling to you, as it was, as it turned out, to the people of St. Paul's and the people of Nevis. That someone charged with administering the Ministry of Lands on the island and is in charge of land and housing, the statutory corporation, would miraculously find himself and his brothers and his sister and his father and everybody, it seems, associated with him benefiting from government land and house. I think that that is an important matter. So you're concerned, it appears, about the timing of the prosecution. I'm saying I am concerned about whether what is being said is factual, and to ask those who are responsible to give an account. Nothing at all is wrong with that, in my humble opinion, Mr. Hanley.
Okay, I'm happy you spoke about the matter of transparency, because my next question is to do with transparency on the selection of candidates. We know every election candidates appear, but there is somehow it's done in secrecy. Many persons don't know how candidates are selected. So, do you think it's time for us now to have some full transparency on the selection of candidates?
Well, the selection of candidates varies from party to party. Candidates are a unique party activity, and I don't know what transparency you would require further from that. I mean, each party will determine how it selects its candidates. The transparency, I would imagine, would then flow from the public having an opportunity to hear those candidates, to hear the various ideas, and to listen to the debate and the contending ideas and to vote accordingly. you, Mr. Hanley, would appreciate that sometimes when we announce ourselves as candidates, it doesn't quite work. So we all have different processes that we would employ. Some seek to make an announcement themselves. Others wait until the party makes an announcement. It depends. I don't think that one is any less transparent than the other, but at the end of the day, that's a unique party process, and that is what we'll have to do. So I don't know that you can do anything more than that, than allow the parties to determine their candidates in whatever fashion the parties determine.
You mentioned a matter to say that I would appreciate. Yes, I do appreciate transparency, and that is why I want to be the change I want to see. That is why I announce the truth at the time so that the people can see a transparent process. And you are now saying to me that the party decides whoever is going to be the candidates. What about the people? The people supposed to see what's happening.
Mr. Hanley, with respect,
there. The people vote for candidates.
Mr. Hanley, you'll have to take that up with your party. You can't ask me that. My party isn't having the same issues that your party is having.
Every party is having the same issue. People are calling for transparency.
I'm suggesting to you that if you want to see more transparency in the party that you declared yourself a candidate for, then you must take that up with them, not with me. If I were in your party, I would tell them, give you the opportunity to run. You're a young man, you have a lot to offer. And somebody young and strong must be able to take the blows that are coming. So I prefer you, because you have been here and I know you can take the blows that will come. But they may have a different idea. I can't tell your party what to do.
I can assure you, blows will come.
Yes.
But definitely it will not be me.
Well, we know it won't be you.
Blows will come.
But we now know it won't be you, because the party has said not you. So, I mean, what do you want of me? I mean, they have said not you.
But
I can't tell you much more than that.
What did the people say, though?
Well, I don't know what the people say.
Well, the people will speak, and they will speak in due time.
Okay, Mr. Ham. You actually have a question for me? Because...
Yes.
Yes.
So you agree that the matter is not transparent. It's up to the party to decide, and then the party go to the people and say, these are the candidates, vote for them.
That has usually been the case.
That is the case.
In every political process that I know, the parties decide their candidates and then present their candidates to the people.
And you are an advocate for transparency.
Absolutely.
So do you think that is transparent, that process?
I think it's a time-honored tradition. It is transparent. It works in accordance with each party's constitution and how they select candidates.
Yes.
That has been our process.
So you have no intention of changing that system. We spoke about electoral reform earlier. You said tomorrow the House will meet to change the term limit of Prime Minister. What about comprehensive electoral reform? Well, do you believe in comprehensive electoral reform?
I just don't see, Mr. Hanley, with all respect, I don't see that as an issue. I think you are uniquely placed to recognize that in your case there's been an issue. But I don't see that as an issue. It has never arisen. It is not arising, so far as I'm aware, in any other political party. Maybe it is instead of asking me about electoral reform.
That's because everything is done in secrecy.
No, my view is, instead of asking me about electoral reform, maybe you ought to speak to your party about reform itself. Because it seems to me that part of your problem is that you are a member of a dysfunctional political party. I can't correct that for you, but that is the reality that you seem to be dealing with. I have said to you, and I say to you now again, that there's room on this side. There's a big tent. The CCM always welcomes everyone. And so don't feel bashful about coming and saying you want a better deal, because we offer a better deal. If you're part of something that's dysfunctional, then come out from among them. That's my advice, unsolicited.
Next question.
Yes.
Some legislation was passed in the House recently, and one of the headlines, if you could explain exactly what this means: commercial water taxi operations prohibited from private peers. If you could explain.
But what do you mean, what does that mean? I think it's obvious on its face.
Okay, could you give us some more details on that?
Well, we are seeking to ensure that whatever commercial operations that are to happen from designated docks for that purpose. That you can't have a private dock and engage in commercial activity from that private dock. We will shortly be dealing with some regulations under the Nevis and Seaports Authority legislation, which I think will bring greater clarity. But what we are seeking to do is to better manage and monitor what happens in terms of activity on the ocean. We know that we have a water taxi industry that is developed and is growing, and we need to properly and effectively manage that. Things like safety. If you're at a private dock, safety and security, it means that it's outside the government's control, outside NASPA's control, outside the control of the police, etc. So we want something that is within our control, that we can manage, so that we can give our stamp of approval, essentially, and ensure that the traveling public is at all times safe.
So what is in place for those who had private docks before this legislation was passed? Is there anything in place?
It has nothing to do with those who had private docks. We're talking about having commercial water taxi operations from those private docks. And what I'm saying is that we are currently seeking to draft some regulations. Those regulations, I believe, we've had input from the water taxi operators, and that will, we hope, form the basis of a new paradigm moving forward. So that is what we're seeking to achieve. Greater safety and security for our traveling public.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Good day, Premier. My name is Kenichi Serino from The Observer.
Yes.
My first question regards a recent court judgment made at the end of last month between Alonzo Cardi, a police officer, and the AG regarding a drone that flew over your private residence. In the judgment, while the judge does not suggest that the Premier's office tried to influence the police, it does say that the police officer in question was influenced by the fact that the person making the criminal complaint was your spouse. Are you familiar with the judgment, and do you agree with the judge's assessment that he was influenced by your position?
I don't agree with anything the judge said. I've seen the judgment, and I think that is why we have appellate courts, and my information is that that judgment will be appealed. Judges can say what they wish. They are judges. But just like you and I, they misinterpret, they get things wrong. They sometimes come at matters from a particular perspective. And that is why we have a wise man as the judge, and we have 3, hopefully, wiser people in the Court of Appeal, and we ultimately have 5 and sometimes 7 even wiser people at the Privy Council. We have to appreciate that that is how our legal system and our judicial system is structured. So if anybody is dissatisfied with the first instance judgment, they can go above to seek to get that rectified.
Sorry, so are you saying that the judgment will be appealed?
That is my understanding, yes.
From the AG's office?
That is my understanding,
okay.
Yes.
My second question related to the matter is, given just the fact that this is the initial judgment and that an election may be forthcoming very soon, are you worried that there will be reputational damage to the police ahead of the election, given what the judge says in this ruling?
Well, that is one of the reasons I say I don't agree with what has been said, because there is a concern about reputational damage to the police. In fact, some of the language employed in the judgment, I thought, was, in my view, unfortunate, because that language sought to impugn the integrity of very senior members of the police, members who have served with distinction for well over 3 decades and have never had any suggestions that they were otherwise than professional. When we start to attack institutions such as our police, particularly where, in my view, those attacks are unwarranted, we lead ourselves into a very dangerous situation, where from the very top we start to erode confidence in institutions which depend on public confidence if they are to work. All of us have a job to do. The court has its job to do. The parliament has its job to do. The premier, the prime minister, we all have our jobs to do. And we have separation of powers. That is why, even where we disagree, we respect that level of odium and contempt which was heaped upon our police. whether or not that is warranted or was warranted in the circumstances. I think all of us have to operate within our respective spheres of influence with the necessary prudence and good sense that is required if we are to have the kind of society that we need. And the police must at all times have the confidence of the public if they are to do an effective job that we call on them to do.
So I understand that you take issue with the language that was used around in describing the actions of a police officer. Can I ask a two-part question? To your understanding, is Inspector Carty still a police officer? And the judge had also recommended certain actions be taken, including a referral to the Police Services Commission and a possible investigation for perjury. Will those actions be taken, or will they be held pending an appeal?
Well, I don't know. The judge has made suggestions of actions to be taken. That's a matter for the judge. I'm not aware that Mr. Carty was a claimant or party in litigation before the court. So this is, as I would consider it to be, statements that a judge makes in a judgment. The decision was between the Attorney General on the one hand and this chap, whoever his name is, on the other. Right? The fact that the judge did not accept the evidence of a witness. Let us put this in layman's terms. I sue you in the court. I say that you came down the road driving too fast and you hit my car, and therefore you're liable for the damage that is caused to my car. That is my claim. I go to court, I stand up in the witness box, I take the oath, and I say, that is what happened. This chap from the Observer was late for work, he rushed down the road, he hit my car, he damaged my car. You come, I'm sorry, to court, you take the oath, and you say, that is not what happened. Mr. Brantley was not paying attention. He came up the road, he came on my side of the road, and that is what caused the accident. Now the judge is going to make a decision. And the judge is going to find either that Mr. Brantley's story is to be preferred, or your story is to be preferred. Isn't that accurate?
Yes.
So does that translate into one of us being guilty of perjury? And one of us should be charged for perjury? Or is that merely a question of different people bringing to bear in a court the evidence as they see it? That is why the judge is judge of fact and law. The judge can determine, based on this person's demeanor, I don't believe them, that they weren't convincing. These are all factors. But if every time we disbelieve a witness, we say that they've perjured themselves and charges should be brought, then a lot of us would have been locked up a long time. Because I have been a lawyer in the courts prior to this sojourn that I've taken here in politics. And I've won some cases, I've lost some cases. And it is not unusual for a judge to say, I prefer the evidence of the plaintiff, or I prefer the evidence of the defendant. To then go on from that to say, this person perjured themselves and I want charges brought against them and this ought to happen. That is where I think we now have to ask what is going on, because that is highly unusual. So insofar as Mr. Carty is concerned, I believe Mr. Carty is still on the force. I have no say in the matter, but I think long may he be there, because I think he's an excellent officer of the law, and I have never known that Mr. Carty has any issues, disciplinary or otherwise, impacting him. And I think it is unfortunate indeed, because any other officer could have been called to investigate the matter. It happened to be him. And when, all of this is sort of reduced to its core, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? Now, yes, the person complaining was my wife. I have never known my wife in all my years of knowing her to be a person to make up stories. She says she comes out of her house, the privacy of her house, that she pays for, where she lives with her children, and she hears something sounding like a swarm of bees over her head. She looks up and hears a drone right over her head. She says she doesn't know if the drone was looking in her window, if the drone was peeking. Suppose this was a burglar casing the house to come back and rob it. Suppose the drone was armed, Drones now can be armed with explosives, they can be armed with weapons. Suppose the drone was there trying to take pictures, maybe capture her or my children in some compromising situation in their own home. We don't know. So if you remove my wife from the equation, since it appears that the persona is relevant here, and let us say anybody in St. Kitts or Nevis comes outside, particularly our women, come outside in the privacy of their own home and see a drone right over their head. My wife said when she pulled her camera to take a photo, the drone took off. She was so distressed by it that she got into her car and followed in the direction that the drone went. She did more than me, because I probably would not have done that, but she did that. When she followed in the direction, it led her to a particular area. She met one vehicle in that area, a rental, with two strangers in it. One Caucasian and one black. And they took off when they saw her. She followed them. And at some point was able to capture the number plate of the vehicle. She reported that to the police. No, I asked rhetorically, what are the police to do with that report? Take it and say, thank you very much, ma'am. Put it in the desk? Or the police themselves have an obligation to find out what is this about and what was going on? So the police opted to investigate. That is what we pay them to do. Because the same people who are now saying or suggesting that the police should not have investigated will be the same ones to criticize the police. I brought a report and nothing was done. So the police investigation led where it led. It led them to the car rental company owner. It led them to who had rented the car. It led them to where the people had been staying. And ultimately led them to detain one individual for questioning. That individual then sued and said, I was detained unlawfully. That is what this case is about. So, again, remove the fact that the person making the complaint is my wife and put your wife. You have a wife?
I don't have a wife, no.
Well, I wish you good luck in the new year. So, your girlfriend, your sister, your mom.
Or myself.
Well, or yourself. But put in the privacy of your home. And that happened to you, that violation happened to you, and you reported it to the police. Would you not want Mr. Carty, or whichever officer, Superintendent David is here, would you not want him to take your report seriously and to investigate? At the end of the day, the investigation may reveal that no crime was committed. But that is why you have an investigation. Suppose on investigating they found the drone and the drone was armed with explosives, C4, come to blow up Mark Brantley house. Suppose an investigation was armed with a gun. Suppose an investigation they found that they had taken photos, peering into my daughter's bedroom. That is what investigations are supposed to do. If I'm understanding what is being said here, it's as if it's saying that the police should not have investigated at all. And that can't be correct.
Sorry, if I can interject, to use your analogy, I mean, isn't that the whole point, though? Like, as a person making a complaint, I don't expect necessarily, I mean, I may want the police to do what I want them to do, but it's the police's job to say, this is a crime, this isn't a crime. I mean, I'm sure they get many complaints about things that aren't crimes, which they can't act on.
Yeah, but my question is, how would the police know until they've investigated? If you call the police and say, I heard a loud scream from my neighbor's house, screaming loudly in my view is not a crime. So you may well say, the police may well say, well, no, there's no crime in the books about screaming loudly. But the fact that the report is made, the police come and they knock on the door and they found out that in fact some violence occurred in the house next door that led to the loud screams. It is the fact of the investigation, that's what I'm talking about. When the police have finished the investigation, the police can then say to the complainant, there is no crime that we've discovered. Therefore, we can't bring any charges. But you can't tell me that the police should not investigate. Because it's only after they've investigated they know whether or not a crime was committed. That is the difficulty that I'm having. because it's putting the police in an impossible situation where they're having to make a determination whether a crime was committed before then the investigation is done. All that Mr. Carty and the police did here was to investigate. And the investigation led them to a person of interest that was detained, or who was detained, for further questioning. That is my understanding of what happened.
Okay, may I just ask two more? I don't want to belabor this. So
No, please, go ahead.
May I just ask two more questions? The first is, one of the issues that was raised in the court case was that the complaint, invasion of privacy, isn't a crime. So can you say what was the crime that Mr. McMillian was being investigated for? And the second question is, and I apologize if this is a question that should be directed to your spouse instead, but in the judgment, the judge says that he suggests that Mrs. Brantley, I can't find it now, it is more than likely that Mrs. Brantley was not telling the truth to Inspector Carty when she reported that the two men of the photos resembled the men she allegedly saw in the rented vehicle. Just broadly, can you comment, or you can, it would be understandable if you declined, on the courts suggesting that your spouse was less than truthful?
Well, that is why I say I disagree with this judgment, and I think it has to be appealed. I think that it is a kind of judgment which, frankly, warrants an appeal. And again, I am not going to get into all of that, but the suggestions and where these suggestions come from, what are they based on? You know, my wife is sitting at home and just decided, I have nothing better to do today. Let me make up a story. And let me just, and not only make it up, let me put it up on Facebook. Let me go and take a photograph of a car and a number plate of a rental and say that was the car. All of this, you would have to accept, was all made up. So I am trying to understand what was the basis of saying that this was somehow made up. And that is the difficulty that I'm having. It's almost as if you're saying that people must be crazy. They just go down the road and just decide that they're going to pull something out of thin air and make up something about poor Mr. McMillan. Nobody knows who's McMillan. I don't even know who McMillan is. So of all the people that come into St. Kitts and Nevis, my wife decided to make up a story about somebody she doesn't know, has never met, somebody I don't know and have never met. All that really happened here is as I've described, and the police investigation led them in a particular direction. Did the police go and find the car rental owner? Yes. Was the car rental owner able to say who rented from them? Yes. Did that lead the police to where the people were staying? Yes. And their identity? Yes. That is what happened. So it's not as if my wife said something and as a consequence of what she said, all of this happened. There were a lot of other bits and pieces of evidence that led the police in a particular way and in a particular direction. Now, the question about whether invasion of privacy is a crime. If I come to the police as a layperson, as my wife is, and say to the police, this happened, and I'm concerned that it's an invasion of my privacy, that statement is neither here nor there. My wife is not a lawyer. She's not an investigator. She doesn't know what are crimes and what are not crimes. She knows that something happened to her. That is why the police will then investigate to determine if a crime has been committed. And that is the point that I'm trying to make. So if you come and you say, listen, I was coming down the road and this is what happened to me, and I feel aggrieved about it, you're absolutely correct that what you tell the police may not be on any law book as a crime. But if what you tell the police is sufficient, I've asked the question rhetorically, for example, was the drone armed? What was it doing there? What was its purpose? Were these people peeping into my daughter's bedroom? These are not irrelevant matters. Were these people burglars who were getting ready to come back next week to burgle my house? So if the police investigation into a claim that one's privacy had been violated were then to find that this was a group of criminals who were going around robbing homes and using a drone to case the homes, then that is a crime. So my point is that to say to the police that because this is what is said to them, They should have said, no crime, get out of here. That to me is clearly, let me not employ inelegant language. That is a matter that is appealable. You put it that way.
I get that that a layperson may make a complaint about something that they found to be wrong, and that's for the police to find the actual charge. But in the court's judgment, it found that the initial charge was something around invasion of privacy, and they found that there was no actual crime accusation raised, like an actual criminal accusation raised. So I wouldn't fault a layperson for making, or I don't think anyone could fault a layperson for making a complaint about something that wasn't a crime.
Yes.
But isn't it then down to the police to actually have a crime that they would then investigate?
No, not that they would then investigate. They would then charge. It's the difference. I think the charge comes after the investigation. So if at the end of the day the court found that the police charged a crime which didn't exist, and that's eminently within the judge's purview to find. But in so finding, to go down a road now and start to talk about who committed perjury and who lied and who should be charged with this and who should be charged with that. In my days, and maybe things have changed because we have a lot of young lawyers and young judges who have come now, but in my days there used to be something called restraint, judicial restraint. And judges, as I understood it, I've never been a judge myself, but I've appeared before a lot of them. And my understanding was that judges did as much as was required to determine a case. And they didn't get into all the extraneous matters of whether they like somebody's haircut or whether the hairstyle that the lady had was wrong or her dress was too bright. Those were not relevant considerations. And so you exercise the necessary restraint. And that is why I'm saying that in my own experience, over 20-odd years before the courts, you won and you lost, but you often heard a judge say, I prefer the evidence of Tom over Harry. That did not then translate into Harry being charged with perjury. So, again, I go back to where I started. I have, as I'm required to do, to respect the judge and the judge's opinion, and that is why we have an appellate court. And I hope that, based on what I've heard, this matter will be appealed, and that the appellate court will take a fresh look at the matter and then determine whether or not all that was said was appropriate in the circumstances. I think that is the best that I can say to you. But in my view, the identity of the complainant ought not to have factored at all. And whether it's you, yourself, as you pointed out, or somebody who's here, their wife, their daughter, their girlfriend, whoever, I think, ought to be able to be in the sanctity of their home, free from that type of invasion that occurred to my wife. And yes, people may not, because of the politics, they may get caught up with that, but at the end of the day, each of us is entitled to that in our own homes. And that ultimately is something that we cannot lose sight of. And we do not know up to now why that Joan was there. We do not know. And that continues to be a question, and certainly the police, in my view, were eminently entitled to investigate that matter.
Thank you. Just two more questions, not to do with this court case. To go back to your statement around the cruise ships, can you go into the numbers a little more and, if possible, tell us why do you think the size of the ships are increasing while the actual number of visits is staying level? And as a second question, you had mentioned that work will be appearing at Penny's Park in a short amount of time. Is it possibly, does that mean 1 week or a month from now? Could it be more specific?
Well, in terms of a short amount of time, in terms of the actual work on Penny's Park, I do not have a date. I'm merely, based on the report that I've had from the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism, who's the lead, he's indicating that off-site work is happening and that we expect work soon. We're coming up clearly into the Christmas period when not a lot happens. So I would think that soon, in my humble view, would probably be more like January. But if something happens sooner than that, then I would be happy. In relation to the reasons for larger ships, the truth be told that we have very little control over that. Last year, for example, we have a ship called Azamara, and Azamara would have come to us in 2017, if memory serves, and did not come in 2018 because the company shifted that ship elsewhere. So oftentimes it's the luck of the draw. And we go out, we continue to do what we can, we continue to liaise with the ship agents, etc. But if the company, for example, is using a larger ship in this region for this season, then you get the benefit of that. And oftentimes if they use a smaller ship, then obviously you get the result of that as well. So I don't think there's any particular magic to it. I think a lot of it depends on the scheduling of the vessels that the various ships, the various companies would use.
Good morning, Mr. Premier.
Good morning, sir.
Glenn Bart from SKN News 9.
Yes.
And I shall be brief, but I have several questions. I'll ask all of them, and I'll take my seat. The first two questions are kind of related, and they also are referring to the budget of Nevis. Budget of Nevis. The first part of it is about the debt levels of the Nevis Island administration. Can you explain to us what is the current levels of debt that the NIA is experiencing, and how does that compare to several years previously? If it is on the rise, can you explain why it is on the rise? The second part it relates to the sustainability of the Nevis Island administration. Over the past few years, there have been several amounts of monies granted to the Nevis administration by the federal government. Is this a case where the Nevis Island administration is becoming over-dependent on these federal funds, or are you trying to build a stronger economy, or is the economy not strong enough so that it requires these federal funds? So those are the two related financial questions in relation to the upcoming budget. My third question is related to the Four Seasons. You have spoken at length about it, but there is one aspect of it that keeps propping up on certain talk shows in relation to your political adversary. Basically, they're saying that the Nevis Island administration, in collaboration with the corporation of Four Seasons, may have colluded, maybe that's a bit too strong a word, but to bring back the workers before a certain time frame to prevent workers from taking their severance pay. Now, my question is, was there such a case of collaboration taking place? So if you can comment on that. The next one relates to your company, your law firm. We know that the law firm had been doing business during the previous administration as well, and continues to do so. But what exists now is that you are now the premier, and some of the ministries that your law firm is doing business with comes under your jurisdiction. Do you see this as a conflict of interest? And do you believe that if it can be perceived as a conflict of interest, that perhaps you can designate other persons to deal more directly with the law firm, and so it doesn't appear to be that you are making direct decisions for the Nevis Island administration in relation to your law firm? And lastly, could you just give us an update with regards to hotel and CBI projects taking place on Nevis? I believe you had mentioned some time ago that there was a hotel that was supposed to be built here in Nevis, and you can also comment on some of the other outstanding CBI projects that are occurring here. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Bart, thank you very much for your questions. You asked about the debt levels of the NIA. I don't have numbers with me today, but I will have numbers in the budget on Tuesday of next week. Based on what I can say, however, we have had an increase in our debt, largely associated with the difficulty that we would have experienced this year, when we would have had to rely on overdrafts and the like to ensure that our bills were paid as a government. Difficulties meaning that one of our main engines in our economy, the Four Seasons, was offline for 4 months with the attendant losses to us in terms of revenue. So I would have to punt and tell you that I can provide a more detailed answer to you on Tuesday when we have the budget, the reading of the budget. So I would ask your forgiveness in that regard. In relation to sustainability, I would want to correct your language if I can be so presumptuous. You're saying the federal government granted us money and we are dependent on federal funds. I think that Mr. Barth, as a senior member of the press,
let me clarify.
Yes.
What I'm saying is that, yes, these federal funds are due to Nevis. I will agree to that. It's a Sinkers and Nevis
But if it's due to
situation.
Nevis, why are you asking the question? I'm not understanding you.
Okay. What I'm saying is that if those funds were not available to Nevis, can Nevis itself be sustainable based on its own economic activity, so that when these funds that are due to Nevis come into Nevis, it's basically an additional set of a windfall, if you want to call it
Okay.
that.
Mr. Barth, thanks for the clarification. For my own purposes, I want to be very clear that the federal government has not granted Nevis anything, and there are no federal funds that Nevis has received. None. I want to be pellucid on that. I think that language is very important when we engage. All that Nevis has received is a portion of the citizenship by investment proceeds that have come to the country of St. Kitts and Nevis for the negotiation of a document, that document being the passport of St. Kitts and Nevis, which in my respectful view is owned as much by you as it is by the post and cotton grower. We are one people, one country. And this notion that I've heard, even sometimes from the politicians, that Nevis is somehow getting help from St. Kitts, that's nonsense. And I want to say that very clearly. It is abject nonsense. And I think that language has to go away. Because if the Honorable Sean Richards, the Deputy Prime Minister, were to get a project done in Sandy Point, nobody would allege that Sandy Point is getting assistance or getting a grant or getting the language that is being used to describe Nevis getting some share. I have said on record, not even a fair share, but some share of what is coming in by way of citizenship by investment. That to me is critical. Let me go back in time. When we put this unity construct together and we negotiated 3 parties, PAM, PLP, and CCM, the issue of citizenship by investment flows was one of the critical issues. You know why? Because under the Labour NRP administration, Nevis got nothing. Whenever some little money trickled over the Narrows, they put a word next to it in the ledger, loan. And when money was spent on our sister island of St. Kitts, the ledger says grant. 2 different words, 2 different meanings. And we had a problem with that. So when we sat to negotiate, one of the issues that we put squarely on the table was there had to be a more equitable dealing with citizenship by investment flows. Now, why am I emphasizing that? It's because I want the people of St. Kitts, Mr. Barth, to understand that this has nothing to do with St. Kitts people money. It has nothing to do with VAT collected in St. Kitts. It has nothing to do with customs duties collected in St. Kitts. It has nothing to do with corporate taxes paid in St. Kitts, business licenses and other fees in St. Kitts. The people of Nevis have never asked the government in St. Kitts to send any portion of that. We have said, give us an equitable share of the monies that come from the Citizenship by Investment Program. And so I'm happy when you got up to correct yourself, you indicated that you agree that Nevis is entitled to its share. No. The question of whether or not Nevis can survive without it is an interesting question. Interesting in this sense that in the period leading up to 2015, as I said, Nevis got nothing. And when we did get, we got not even crumbs, because what we got couldn't be crumbs. So less than crumbs. But it was said that this was a loan that we had to repay. So I believe $4 million came during an election cycle, says payment for the airport lands, and you had some other little pittance that came. In a context, Mr. Bard, where the SIDF had collected $1.2 billion. So, what came and nothing was the same thing. But Nevis is still here. Nevis continued to survive. And it means, therefore, that it was and continues to be the resilience of the Nevisian people and the Nevisian economy that keeps us afloat. What has happened is that since 2015, we have sort of formalized some mechanisms for Nevis to get some share. As I've said, and I've said so publicly, not yet a fair share, but some share of the CBI proceeds. And that is the monies that have come. And when that money has come, it has been used for specific projects, which are dotted all across the landscape. The Mondo track is there. The pier at Wally is there. The work at the Treasury, new Treasury building in town is there. Work at the hospital is there. The work over at the airport, for example, is there. Police station in Newcastle is there. So there's evidence of what the money has come and been allocated to and earmarked to. The overall economy of Nevis, I think the best indication is where I started. This year, we had a very difficult year. One of our main engines was down, 4 Seasons. But our people got paid. Our bills were paid. I know some vendors out there hearing me say they didn't get paid yet, but I'm planning on paying them too. Right? So the reality is, Mr. Bart, that we survive how we always survive. We had to go to our banks. We spoke to them. We asked them to extend our line of credit to give us a little latitude on our overdraft. That is how we have survived. There's no Lagos coming over. There's no Santa Claus coming over with a bag of money from St. Kitts to us. That hasn't been happening. Now, we have said to the federal government that we feel that based on the inflows and the levels of those inflows, that Nevis, in fact, ought to receive substantially more than is being received. Because the Charleston Accord that we negotiated and that ought to form the basis of the relationship, which was done while we were in opposition, but hoping to get into government, said that the CBI flows will be shared on a population pro rata basis. Now, there's 13,500 people here, I think 34 or something in St. Kitts. So that would really put us at about 30%. But I will tell you, even if we were getting 20% of the proceeds, we would still be multiples of what Nevis has in fact received. So that is why I say we're getting a share, but not yet a fair share. And that is a matter which is on the subject of ongoing discussions between the federal government and the Nevis Island administration to come to a determination. But I want to disabuse anybody of this notion that is being peddled out there, that somehow the viability of Nevis and the NIA is somehow dependent on handouts from St. Kitts. We're not getting any handouts from St. Kitts to start with. We are, and I'm happy the language you use, getting some of what belongs to us. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that Nevis has demonstrated over the years and continues to demonstrate, as this year has shown, that where there are difficult times, we do what we need to do in order to move forward. Now, you say about the 4 Seasons, if I can move to that quickly, and you say that the word you used that you didn't want to use was colluded, that somehow the NIA colluded with the 4 Seasons, and if I'm understanding you correct, to bring back workers before they could collect their severance. I believe, Mr. Bart, you've been listening to too much opposition talk radio. Because, yes, I'm saying you're listening to too much of it. Because you see, you could get infected sometimes by what people say, right? And the misinformation. Because as somebody who does a talk show myself, I can tell you, it is difficult finding things to talk about every week. And the opposition has the luxury of making things up as they go. So let me put a few facts on the table. First of all, Four Seasons advised us and everybody since December of 2018 that they would close for 4 months, June, July, August, and September of 2019. And they advised the reason for it, because they were going to be doing the massive construction in the center of the hotel. Four Seasons gave workers affected, because we understand that the hotel is closed. And some workers, such as servers and the chefs and all that, there are no guests, so they wouldn't be there. Those who work in the rooms, housekeeping and all of that, they would not be necessary. So Four Seasons would have worked out a deal with the workers, and yes, involving the government as well. So if there was collusion, it was collusion to try to look after the workers. Let us think for a moment, Mr. Barr. Four Seasons could have taken a view that we're not going to pay anybody a penny. We're going to close down the hotel for 4 months. And people would have to do what they have to do. And those people then would have been severed, and they would have gone and said to the government, we come to collect the severance pay. And let me hasten to say that severance pay is not paid by the NIA. Severance pay is paid at the federal level, as you would have gathered from what I said earlier involving the Brownhill Communications workers. It is the Ministry of Labor in St. Kitts that handles severance pay, not us in Nevis. So, Four Seasons could have done that. They said instead, they want to hold on to their workers. They've invested in them, they've trained them, they want to hold on. And they thought that as a good faith measure, they would allow the workers to continue to be employed, even though there was no work. So we said to them, what is it you're going to offer? They said they'll offer the 25% wage to the workers. So the workers were still employed, albeit at a wage of 25% because they were not physically at work. And that is why they said if they found jobs in the interim elsewhere, they'll continue to get the 25%. And if, as some of them did, found jobs during the construction at Four Seasons itself, they would still get the 25%, even though they were being paid now as part of the construction team. That was the understanding. They not only got the 25%, Mr. Bart, but they continued to get the medical coverage, the insurance, etc., because their employment was never severed. So, Four Seasons also indicated to workers early when they would be coming back to work. Because they said, I believe it was mid-September, that they would come back in mid-September, even though the hotel remained closed, for training. So workers, even when they went off in June, knew that at a particular date, they ought to be coming back because the hotel had indicated as much to them. When clearly 300 plus of our people are going to be impacted, we have to be concerned. But our job was to try that the people continue to be employed. They were never terminated. They were never severed. So this notion that something about timing and people came back at a particular time because there was some collusion is really nonsense. Because people always knew when they were going to come back, one. And two, if there were workers who wanted to end their relationship with Four Seasons, they could have done so as well. They could have said to Four Seasons, I prefer not to get your 25%, not to get your medical coverage and insurance that you're offering. I prefer just to sever my relationship and go about my business. And they could have done that and collected whatever it is they would have collected. But with a clear understanding that when the hotel reopened, they had no job there to come back to. So we sought to do all that we could to protect the workers at Four Seasons. And it will be for them and the public to ultimately judge the efforts that we made. But there was no collusion, no effort on our part to do anything to prejudice our workers. And as I said, if we are to be accused of collusion, then let it be said that we colluded to help the workers at Four Seasons. And we went above and beyond. I have been contacted by colleagues regionally who say they have never heard of any major employer closing down and the Minister of Finance writing to banks to ask the banks intercession. Never heard of that. That's novel. They've never heard of a one-off payment to help them with back-to-school expenses. That is novel. We went the extra mile to cushion the impact on these workers. And so I think that those who continue to be, as I've called them, the natural neighbors of extreme negativity, they need to just stop. They can't win the election anyway, Mr. Bart, so they might as well stop. Waste of time. The best prospect they had was Mr. Hanley, and they threw him away. Now you ask about the law firm of Daniel Brantley. And again, this is a usual beating horse. Sometimes when I listen, I would say that the law firm of Daniel Brantley, working for every department in government, every ministry, it is a law firm of choice. Will it surprise you, Mr. Bart, to know that Daniel Brantley has one client, solitary client in government, and that is Nevlec? One. Doesn't do any work for anybody else as far as I'm aware. And it had that client since 2004, if memory serves. I wasn't even in politics then, when Daniel Brantley became the lawyers for Nevlec. So if the argument is that now that Mark Brantley, who left Daniel Brantley since 2013, and has had no involvement with the firm because I separated myself from the firm, if Mark Brantley, because he has a financial interest in Daniel Brantley, ought now to say that Nevlec should not be Daniel Brantley's client, then that's a discussion that we can have. But the notion that somehow Daniel Brantley is doing work for all these government agencies and departments is abject nonsense. And I would ask, where's the evidence of it? Because so far as I'm aware, there is no client that Daniel Brantley has had, no business that has been sent to it from this government under my watch. And certainly, my colleagues here will attest to it that whenever we are sitting in the cabinet and any matter were to come up, an alien land holding license, for example, where Daniel Brantley is applying on behalf of somebody, I excuse myself and recuse myself from the process. Some seem to me that they're saying that the business should shut down altogether. But I don't think in a small community like this that is really viable or sensible, because, Mr. Bart, if the people lose confidence in me tomorrow and send me home, well, what am I to do? When the business was shut down and everything I have and built is gone. I don't plan to stay here and overstay my welcome. So I plan to contribute what I can and then move on. And I would hope, if God grants me long life, that I can go back to the practice of law and fight some of the battles that my friend here from the Observer thinks needs to be fought in the court. That is a forum that I enjoy. That's where I would like to go. But until such time, I'm here. And the efforts to make it appear that I have somehow been trying to use my office for personal gain, it's really an effort to say that I am like those making the charge. And I'm not like them. I'm not like them. I never waited until I got into government to say I own a home, Mr. Bart. It didn't happen. Because I did what prudent people did. I worked hard and sought to invest. But some not only waited until they were in government to own a home, they got the home through land and housing. I can say these things because these are the facts. And having got it through land and housing, they said, that's not enough. Let me get one for my sister, and my brother, and my brother, and my brother. And let me get another piece for myself too. And when we got into office, we had to undo another transaction, which I believe was to benefit the missus. So all that is left really for some of them to take is the seawater. So you got to be careful. You can't talk about St. Kitts Nevis, federal funds, you better worry about federal seawater. Because if some of them get back into office here, that's what they will survey next. Having grabbed land and house, all that is left for them to try and grab is sea. So we have to be mindful and cognizant, Mr. Bart, that those who are doing a lot of this talking, and that is why I'm hopeful that the same way you come and you ask me the hard questions, the press will ask them too. Some of them, when they're talking, you must just ask them, how the money drop off the truck when you're going from CFBC to the bank? Don't say nothing more than that, just ask them. They may not cost you, but you must ask them. Right? These are important questions. So I am not shy about being direct because this is the record. And as I said, there is only this one entity, NEVLEC. That is the sole entity. And it has been a client of Daniel Brantley for about 15 years. So, I've been Premier for 2, not yet 2. So if the argument is that NEVLEC should no longer be a client, then let us have that discussion. But don't try to paint a picture that somehow government business is going to Daniel Brantley, because that is not true. It is not factual at all. And I would ask those making those charges to present the evidence that they have that that is in fact happening. It is simply not so. Various CBI projects in Nevis. Yes, we have some projects that we have been working on. We have a small team. This Amman project, which has been talked about some time immemorial. We're working with those to see if we can bring that finally to fruition. We're renegotiating some aspects of that deal. We have the Windham project, where we're also negotiating the forward movement on that. We've had some meetings this year, I think twice so far this year with the developers on that project. I think it's safe to say that these projects have not proceeded at the pace that the government would like. But nevertheless, the developers are telling us that they're serious and they're committed, and so we're trying to see how we can work through those. The Four Seasons, which is a CBI project as well, the Villa side, they continue apace. We have a project down here at Pinny's, what's it called? For Belmont, a project called Belmont, which appears to be moving ahead as well. So we have some projects that seem to have some signs of life. Others, sadly, have not proceeded with the pace that we would like. But we are hopeful that through continued dialogue and negotiations, we'll get them off the ground in 2020. So again, I will be able to say more on some of these discussions in the budget debate that will happen, I hope, starting on Tuesday of next week. So I hope, Mr. Bart, I've been able to answer some of your questions. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Premier, and good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Brown from Vaughan Radio. We just have a few questions for you, sir. The first one, of course, is regarding the tenure of the Prime Minister bill, which will have its second reading in the Federal Parliament tomorrow. Mr. Brantley, you touched a little bit about it, but the question is, if an individual has served as the Prime Minister before, does this apply to that person as well?
No.
No?
This is prospective. It is not retroactive.
Prospective. Okay.
Yes. So the idea is that, and I've heard that argument being advanced by some who say they're opposed to it because Dr. Douglas, who's still in the body politic, has served for 20 years. And the question is whether or not he'll be excluded. My understanding is no, that he would not be excluded.
Okay. The second question is with regards to the Brown Hill Road Rehabilitation Project and the Craddock Road project. Can you give a completion date with regards to these two projects?
Minister, yes.
Yes, and the final question, sir. We understand that the STEP survey, which is being conducted by the NIA and the Federal Cabinet, as well as the PAHO WHO, can you give an update with regards to that survey as well, sir? And those are the few questions. Thank you.
Okay, the STEP survey is ongoing. So far as I'm aware, I'm told that it's making good progress. I have not had this week an update, but I know, for example, that some people are actually at my home doing the survey. So clearly they are fanning out and spreading out across the country, dealing with that. It's an important survey. I think I spoke about it when I was last here, about the effort in that regard. Craddock Road and Brownhill, the Minister last told me that Brownhill should be finished this year. Minister Brand? Okay. So the stretch to the Island Main Road should be done this year. And Craddock Road, I'm told, the second quarter of next year, Craddock Road will be finished. So those are the estimates. That, and if I'm wrong, it's Minister Brand tell me to say so. All right, Mr. Halley.
Yes, two final questions. Can you give us an update on the airport project and the contract with BNL? And also, earlier you mentioned there some chaos between myself and NRP. I want to respond quickly to that. There is no chaos because the evidence will show last year I was elected to be the NRP candidate for constituency 10 by the party branch. That was then ratified by the executive. I then went to the national executive, where I was elected again to be the second vice president of the Nevis Reformation Party. And then shortly after, I announced my candidacy. And then you saw the NRP candidate for constituency 9 announce his own candidacy on live radio. And then we had the NRP candidate for constituency 11 announce his own candidacy on live radio as well. So I followed the process. So in regards to chaos, there was no chaos, only transparency. I delivered transparency, and that is what I believe in. And also, on the other hand, we have your party, the CCM party. You have yet to announce a candidate, any candidate for this federal election. We know that we have two candidates in constituency 10 at this time. We have the Honorable Vance Amri in St. Kitts, and we have the Honorable Eric Evelyn in Nevis. Will we see a transparent process over there in constituency 10 where a candidate is selected for your party? And will we see another transparent process with yourself and also over there number 11 in your party? In the spirits of transparency, will you deliver transparency? Because if you cannot deliver transparency before elected, I don't think you'll be able to deliver when elected. So can you respond to that? Thank you.
Okay. Well, Mr. Hanley, I thought we were done with this, but since you raised it again, and you're talking about transparency, you should have been transparent about the full story. Because you said about your convention, you said about your constituency group, but you missed out an important fact, that since you declared yourself, your party leader and the candidate for number 9 have gone on radio to say that you will not be running for them. So that, to be transparent, you should also say that, so that the public gets the full story. Because you have declared yourself, but they have said that you will not be running for them. So if that's not the definition of chaos, then I don't know what chaos is. Now, insofar as we are concerned for the CCM, you seem to have a desire to get into CCM business. Right? CCM business is for CCM. We are a political party. So we will determine the timing and who is going to be running for CCM. As I said to you in your earlier effort in this vein, these are matters for the party. Your party seems to have had a process where individuals were declaring themselves as candidates. And as you say, the member for number 9 declared himself, the member for number 11 declared himself, and you followed suit and declared yourself. The only problem with your declaration is that the fellas then come back and say, not you, that they don't want you. So I'm saying that to my mind is the epitome of chaos. Because having declared, mind the other two declared, they ain't go on radio, said they don't want them. You're the only man that said they don't want. So that, to my mind, suggests that there is some chaos in terms of how you all are going to go about this thing. You now come to them and say it's not the party but the people. Well, how the people going to get a chance to select you if the party say that you won't be the person? So, I mean, I don't want to use unduly colorful language, but it appears you're forcing yourself on the NRP.
No, I'm not, because the people said I should be the candidate.
But the people said that, and the leader said no.
Well, so, the people vote.
But it seems
we are representing people.
But would you not agree that that is chaos?
There's no chaos with me, because the people said I should be, and I don't know who went on radio after to say I am not.
Right.
But the people has already decided.
Okay.
So that matter is closed for now until sometime next year, and then we take it down to the wire.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Those are like fighting words to me. But the matter of BNL, I regret again, because each month I'm asked about it. I still do not have an update. But again, I'm hopeful that by the time we get to the budget next week, I'll be able to say something on that. Are there any other questions for me, ladies and gentlemen? Okay, the hour has grown late. I want to thank everyone for the opportunity to be here. Mr. Hanley, I want to welcome you back. You always bring some life to this proceeding. Mr. Bart, and I didn't get your name. Kenichi from the Observer. I want to thank you both. Thank you all, I'm sorry, for coming. And of course, the members of the cabinet, Von Radio, and the members of the civil service, the permanent secretaries who are here, the cabinet secretary, the head of our police, our dear friend, Mr. David. We want to thank all of you. Thank you. And I'm not certain that we'll have a press conference next month, for the simple reason that we have 2 sets of budget debates, and I suspect you'll get tired of hearing me. So perhaps we don't meet again until January. So I want to wish all of you a wonderful Christmas when it comes, and a prosperous New Year, and we'll get an opportunity, no doubt, to reconvene in the New Year. Thank you very much.